Спасибо, господин председатель. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Baltic Forum on the 20th conference. It is a remarkable achievement by any standard, and I'm very happy to have been present, I think, at the last 10 conferences, and it's always a pleasure. Not least because one of the wonderful things that we have managed to do at this forum has been not to focus on the blame game. We have had to say things to each other that might be unpleasant, things that we disagree with, but in the end, I think we have always, in the end, focused on looking for a way of assessing the situation in a rational way and also looking for solutions. Now, the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has already said a lot, so I'm in this very privileged position of being able to just focus on some things that I found interesting and wanted to comment on. And one of those things that really attracted my attention was the idea of the EU falling apart, Europe stagnating economically and politically. There is certain truth to the idea that economically we have been somewhat frustrated with the EU's economic performance lately. At the same time, I think that we should not succumb to the temptation of again predicting a doomsday for Europe, for the European Union. I remember about 10 years ago, a Russian participant of this forum promised to attend the EU's funeral and also to cry at this funeral. Now, I understand this is a standing invitation. I also hope that this is not going to happen in our lifetime. And this is an important point to make. I think that a lot of the calculations or miscalculations being made these years have been based on the assumption that the EU is a political dwarf that is not going to be able to have a constructive and also strong policy for itself and also for its neighborhood. But the reality is different. Greece has been mentioned as the place where the Western civilization and the idea of Europe was born and also is going to find its grave. Now, we can see that's not true. There is a lot of healing to be done within the EU, between some of the EU member states over the process that we have witnessed over the last years and especially the last months. But the reality is that the EU member states have agreed on something that was extremely difficult. 28 countries agreed on a way to basically help reconstruct a country that was and basically still is in a very difficult situation economically and also politically, and this is not the first time, but I think to those who have been very skeptical of Europe's ability to find a decent solution, this is a very important process to watch. Refugees have been mentioned as another challenge where there is doubt whether Europe will deal with it. Now, it's a unique challenge. We have not faced anything like that, I think, for decades, at least not in Europe. Now, it is difficult. It is going to be very difficult for the member states to agree on a common policy. We know we haven't reached a full agreement yet. At the same time, what is interesting is that the new EU member states are actually doing something they've never done before. They are admitting refugees, and I'm proud that my country is going to do that. We are still discussing numbers, but the fact is that we already have agreed that 250 refugees will be admitted to Latvia, and I'm really proud that we are participating in a European solution, or at least response, I'd rather say, to the crisis. Ukraine, another issue which has been discussed here, where for all the difficulties and for all the novelty of the situation, I think that the EU has been basically learning by doing how to respond to a crisis in its neighborhood. There is a lot to criticize. We would like to expect perhaps much more from the EU. We would like a stronger common position, but at least we are we are coping with this. And also the EU is still in a process of transformation. The EU is trying to use or at least build upon the difficulties and the mistakes made. And I think that this is going to continue. So please do not write off the EU just yet. Now, about the European-Russian crossroads, I was surprised to hear a very pessimistic assessment by former Minister Igor Ivanov. Now, we at the Baltic Forum try to be optimistic, and I'm quite sure that we will return to a more positive mode of interaction between the West and Russia. To use the metaphor used here about the Trabi in Germany, I'm quite sure it's going to be in December. I'm quite sure it's going to be on December 10th that we actually do return to cooperation. I'm just not sure which year it's going to be. But the reason I'm optimistic is that for all the sounds and interesting ideas we have heard from Russia about a new pivot to Asia, as far as I understand, I think that two things are going to become clear in the very near future. First of all, that confrontation with the West and with Europe is going to be very costly for Russia and also completely unnecessary, completely gratuitous. And secondly, we all want to have strong relations, good partnerships with China. It is a very important global player, of course, but I think that all of us will find that, and this includes Russia, but that the best position to build a strong, stable, friendly relationship with China, in Russia's case, is through being embedded and through being able to rely on a very strong cooperative relation with Europe. Now, the reason that we are facing this difficult situation today, and the reason that there are these frustrations and perhaps disillusionment, I think, is that some of the hopes have not been quite realistic. The idea that Russia might once become a very close partner, or indeed be integrated in a very close relationship with the EU, I think it's still right. I think it's still possible. We have been a bit unrealistic about the tempo and the challenges that have to be overcome to achieve that situation. What wasn't perhaps explicitly said and thought through when we had these hopes was that such a rapprochement between Russia and the West would not just require a certain positive and cooperative foreign policy. This is a matter of convergence of values and ideas and identities. And this is a process that cannot, I think, in Russia's case, happen in a matter of 1 or 2 decades. It's going to be a much longer process, but I'm still hopeful that it's quite possible. We have to, and this is the last part of my remarks, to remain realistic. And this doesn't just mean not cherishing unrealistic hopes and illusions. This also means not losing hope. Today we're facing a situation where the security logic, and that perhaps on both sides, dominates the logic of cooperation. This is going to remain so. We are in a situation of zero trust on both sides. There is no way of building this trust very soon. There is no way of building full trust as long as we remain very different in terms of values and identities between the EU and Russia. But there are certain things we can do, and the best thing that can be done at the moment is trying to work and cooperate in the areas where there is a possibility for working together, even with this very low level of trust. And this is going to be hard work for many years to come, but there is no other way forward. Thank you very much.